Welcome to Saturday, November 28th, 2 days after Thanksgiving. So we're doing a Thanksgiving recap. We had family over.
We had a good Thanksgiving, all the normal, usual things. We had dinner and hiked the mountain, and well, we call it a mountain. It's like a butte, but
Yeah.
you know, it's the mountain, the big hike up the mountain.
Yeah.
And Judah's story was like for 2 days before, do we have to hike the mountain? I mean, they hike the mountain for like fun.
Yeah.
And, Mom, it's Thanksgiving, not thanks tiring. So we all hiked the mountain, even Judah, and he had a good time.
Yep.
So
Up the mountain we go. I carried Marty up there on my backpack. And it's my favorite that we always have the same tradition. We eat lunch, we hike the mountain, we come back and eat lots of pie.
Mhm.
And so it was a really nice Thanksgiving.
So my brother asked Joey if if like Thanksgiving was harder, without Ethan, and I think Joey had a pretty good response.
Yeah, it's because so many times when you have loss and it's that first time that you have a special day without that person, it seems like it's a heavier weight. But for us, they're really all the same. It's this Ethan-shaped hole is always there, and whether it's the Thanksgiving day or the day after or today, the amount that I miss him continues to be the same.
Yeah, we didn't have anybody telling us all day long when he's going to eat the drumstick. I think that's what I miss. Mom, I'm going to have the drumstick. Well, Holly, you can't have it. I'm going to have the drumstick. And then he'd get the drumstick on his plate, and he wouldn't eat it.
Yeah, she's too big. Eyes are bigger than his stomach, just like
but he'd get
all of us
excited
McCoys.
about the drumstick every year, and every year it was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But
So
I don't know. I think when we think about how we're doing, people ask how we're doing, and it's like, well, we're just doing. Like, I don't know. And when I look at things in terms of like a heavenly, eternal perspective, like I'm good. Like I have a lot of peace and a lot of joy and a lot of hope that, like, Ethan is where he's supposed to be. Like. That's the end goal, right? Like that's the end game. Like that's we know we're going. We know that like we will all die.
yeah.
And I know that I will see him again, and I know that I have eternity with Ethan. And so, what's another 40, 50 years?
Yeah.
When you compare that to eternity. And so like, it's not like we will never see him again.
Right.
And I know he's doing fine, like doing really well with all the grandparents, all the old people, hamming it up. Although I do really wonder what Grandma Laverne thinks of Ethan. I'm really curious.
Yeah. I hope Ethan has a perspective like I do about high school and college. I loved high school and college, but I have no desire to go back. And I hope Ethan has that same perspective of he had a blast for the most part while he was here.
Except for he had to unload the dishwasher.
Right. And
put away his clothes.
Yeah, do chores, stuff like that. But he doesn't want to come back. And I want to think that he is happier being restored and at the end game.
Right. So, if we were on our original timeline, like we would be bringing him home from the hospital. Like he'd have his last couple of radiation treatments next week.
Right.
And we'd be either making a plan for physical therapy or making a plan to come home. And that's just wild. And I don't really want to go back to when Ethan was sick.
No.
I don't. I'm glad we're not there. I'm glad that he's not miserable. I'm glad that that's over. If I could change anything, I'd go back to the summer.
When he wasn't sick.
Yeah, like that's what I'd go back to. But I wouldn't go back to him being ill. Yeah. Like that was miserable, and it was bad.
Yeah.
And so
I was looking at pictures and videos, and I think when you look at the day-to-day, I don't think that we saw him deteriorate and decline, but when you look at it in a short period of time, you know, you look at those pictures, and you really see how much he was headed downhill. And I think that gave me some good perspective. And so, you know, there's plenty to talk about, but we're trying to keep that heavenly perspective, even though we have earthly sight, and it's hard to continually shift our perspective that way.
Right, and I mean, just because you have a heavenly, eternal perspective doesn't mean that it just makes everything better. Like, we have hope with a capital H, but like, he's still not here. You know, we still miss him, and you know, you think about hearing the right, like Bob Goff's book talks about, you know, having the right conversation at the right time and the right place. And I think when when Ethan was in the ICU and he was sedated, you know, right after his first surgery, and for whatever, you know, Joey's like, well, we should get the John O'Leary book. Like,
Yep.
We listened to him speak, we like that, so obviously we'll love his book.
Right.
And I think that is the exact thing that we needed to hear when we were in the
Yep.
PICU, like,
Gave us a lot of mantras.
yeah,
you know,
and
helping
it
us.
got us through, you know, those days when it's like, I didn't know if Ethan would come out of it, and I wasn't sure if I wanted him to come out with, it was like after his stroke, like, we didn't really know what child would be, you know,
Right,
waking
left.
up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we got through the ICU, and then, you know, most of September we were down on Davis 7 on the regular pediatric floor. And so the way that we would switch, I would come home Sunday morning, and so Robert Morris, he's a pastor in Texas, and so we listened to his podcast.
For the last couple of years, I'd listened to him, and you know, he's a 26-minute sermon every
There's 3
week.
points, you know,
Yeah.
it's really easy to follow, and so he was doing this sermon on, you know, or sermon series on what happens next. And so talk about, you know, divine timing.
It's called Some Easy Questions, and we'll put it in the link if you want to listen.
Yeah, and it was this sermon on heaven, and I remember like driving home and thinking, wow. And it just, I think I've listened to it a couple times just out of curiosity about heaven and wondering what Ethan's up to. And, you know, we think a lot about heaven and we talk about heaven, but what is it actually like?
And I think it's been wonderful that here we have all of these positive messages that have been coming into our life at the right time, at the right place, preparing our hearts, preparing our minds for what's to come. And I think that's one area that we continue to be very grateful, is that we have these positive influences in our life, and I think it's helped.
Mm-hmm. So onward we go.
Yep.
And so we have a little video mashup, or I don't know if it's a mashup, I'm calling it a mashup, montage. Picture collage of Ethan and Thanksgivings. So a whole decade of Ethan Thanksgivings.
Yep.
And hiking the mountain, and
Yep.
So-
Hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll talk to you next weekend. Till next time. Yep.
I like to think about the goodness of the Lord. He gives me everything I need and so much more. So I just wanna lift my hands and say that I love Him. I just wanna lift my heart in praise. And I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna remember everything that the Lord has done. I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna be, I wanna be, I wanna be. I like to think about the goodness of the Lord. He gives me everything I need and so much more. So I just wanna lift my hands and say that I love Him. I just wanna lift my heart in praise. And I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna remember everything that the Lord has done. I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna remember everything that the Lord has done. I wanna be thankful, I wanna be grateful, I wanna be, 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 I wanna be. I like to think about the goodness of the Lord. He gives me everything I need and so much more. So I just wanna lift my hands